Welcome to the second session of the Rhode Island convening of Artists in Context. Artists in Context is the sponsor of today's program. It was founded in 2009. Louisa McCall, who is sitting right there, is one of the co-directors, and I'm the other. It was founded to instigate, support, and highlight contemporary art practices that cross disciplines and fields to invent new platforms, systems, and representations that change dialogue, thought, and behavior. So we hope. AIC projects don't develop generally in a studio. They live at the intersection of art and other fields like health and science, education, and urban planning. We are present in Greater Boston, in the Pioneer Valley of Massachusetts, and Rhode Island, and the state of Maine. And AIC, which is the initials, AIC also has helped to create a forum for critical cross-disciplinary inquiry outside of academia, while at the same time leveraging openings in the intellectual and creative repositories held by academic institutions. Other AIC-supported events in Rhode Island this year have included promotion and a concluding reception for the Make It Better Health and Design Forum that RISD put on earlier this year, the Urban Pond Procession, which we're going to be talking about to some degree at this session, Who Made Us Creative, the Fishbowl at New Urban Arts, a one-book club at Libertaria, and a Women in Science and Animation salon at Thames and Cosmos. And finally, an event with Ellen Driscoll, our first speaker today, around her piece, Distant Mirrors, which is in the water for another 8 days. One of the major goals of this convening is to further develop the content being presented, to help define and structure the next iteration of the presenter's work by making connections between people, institutions, and ideas. AIC hopes to engender rich dialogue around these exemplary creative practices and to reveal unique attitudes, skills, and implications for creatives who want to work in this way. And I want to just right now give a shout out to our Rhode Island coordinators, Jory Ketton, Micah Salkin, and Murray Robles for the fabulous work that they've been doing in Rhode Island, including this really interesting day. Also, thanks to the City of Providence Department of Art, Culture, and Tourism for support. Also, we have national funding for this, the Nathan Cummings Foundation and the Emily Hall Tremaine Foundation. And also, I want to very much thank Zymedica, and Christina for allowing us to use this space, which is right near the urban pond of the Urban Pond Procession, Mashpog Pond. So, today's, this session's speakers, presenters are Holly Ewald, an artist who has a lot to say about non-traditional practice, and Jake Hatton, who is the executive director of the Skill Yard. So.
Well, thank you all very much for coming. And I want to thank you also very much for having us here. It means a lot to me personally that we're here in this spot because the pond that we've been working on for the last 4 or 5 years almost is right behind here. And it's also, from the research that I've done, it was a very important place for Narragansett settlement was here before Roger Williams came here. So it's great to be right here, and I thank you all for coming and finding your way here too. I actually got kind of lost. And I also just want to thank Marie and Louise for just doing what you guys do in Artists in Context. I think it's really great to have somebody support this kind of work because I think it's a great place for artists to be in terms of really working cross disciplines and with the public, and it's just really important work. So thank you. Let's see. I have. Where did it go? I wanted to sort of start with placing us here on a map. As you'll see, you see where Mashpog Pond is, and then there's other markers for Tongue Pond, Spectacle Pond, and Roosevelt Lake. And then down here is the Patuxent River. So this is all part of the lower Patuxent watershed, and it all comes down into the bay. And then, of course, Providence is north, up at the top of the water, which is what we saw mapped earlier today. And then this is a map of the industrial park, which is where we are, and I think we're at the very top, maybe off the map, upper left area, and then that's in Mashpog Pond. And I hope to come and talk to you folks at Semitica some more about what we can maybe collaborate on in terms of looking at this site in terms of its contribution to some of the storm drain runoff here. But that's for further collaborations. So what got me started on this whole venture of working around Mashpog Pond is this sign. And this sign, I don't know when it was put up by the health department, but it's obviously text-laden and in English and kind of confusing for us to read, and let alone thinking about people who don't speak or read English, how they would interpret this. It's not very informative, and it's meant to warn people not to eat the fish or swim in the water here at Mashpog. And so the community was kind of concerned about this, and Bob Vanderslice, who is here today, it shows his commitment to this effort from the health department, went to Randy Rosenbaum at RISCA and said, do you have an artist that can work with the community to come up with new signs that are more informative and communicative to the population that comes around this pond? And so Randy contacted me and asked me if I was interested, and I'm not a graphic designer. I'd never done signs before, but I took a walk around the park, and these are a couple of photographs that I've took. And this was at the northern end of the park, which I later found out was where the former Gorham silver manufacturing company was, which is directly on the other side, on the eastern side of the pond from us, where we are now. And then this is from the southern end of the pond, looking north. So two very different kinds of images of this place, but this beautiful pond. And so I said, and then I heard about the Gorham Silver Manufacturing Company, and I found out that there was a lot of Narragansett history there. So I was like, okay, this place is rich. This is a gold mine for me. And so I said yes, even though I didn't know anything much about graphic design or, making signs or anything, but that didn't matter. I was just smitten by the place. So I decided I really wanted to work with established groups of people, and I've worked a lot with kids, and I wanted to have them become aware of what was going on with the pond and why it was polluted, and have them come up with some design ideas that would communicate with folks. And as I said, I didn't know also about why the pond was so polluted, so I invited Bob Vanderslice and Elizabeth Scott, who is Deputy Chief of Water Quality, to come and talk with the kids, and I think they were delighted to get out of the office and to come and talk with students. And the kids were really curious. Mainly the elementary school kids were really curious and had lots of questions. And then, so this was, I also worked at Alvarez, which was then Adelaide High School, which was the controversial high school that was built on the former Gorham silver manufacturing site. And this was the first year that the high school was open. They let me in the door then. Now they don't let me in. But one of the things that I felt we needed to do is come up with these new designs for these new signs, but I wanted them to be silk screened because I felt that kind of format would be easily translatable into a bold sign. But I didn't know anything about silk screening. So once again, I had to reach out to other people with different expertise to come in and help me, which is kind of the way that I work in terms of gathering people as I go to become involved and participate. So I talked to Tamara Kaplan at New Urban Arts, and she said, well, maybe Andrew Esch would be interested, and he jumped on board, and he's absolutely fabulous. This wouldn't be happening without his input, for sure. And another reason I wanted to do silk screening was because we could make multiple copies of these designs, and because I had decided I really wanted to do a parade through the neighborhood. I had been to a public meeting, and there weren't that many people from the neighborhood at these meetings. So I felt like we needed to go like knock on doors of houses or something. But then I thought, well, let's do it in a fun way. Let's have a parade. So I went and talked to Arminio Pinkway at Big Nazo, and he said, listen, Holly, there's one thing you got to figure out. You want to do a protest or you want to do a celebration? And I said, oh, I want to do a celebration. I mean, this is a really beautiful place, and we need to celebrate nature, and especially in this urban environment. And so that was key. And so we were going to have these signs, and then Arminio just scrawled out a wonderful little idea for making fish costumes, which we just ran with. And we went to the Cambodian temple on Hanover Street and worked with kids in the neighborhood to make these fish costumes. And it was really wonderful to be at the temple because a lot of the kids in the neighborhood were scared of the temple. And through this project, they really overcame their fear, and they learned something about why, Buddhism in the temple and what it was all about. So that was a real great teaching point. And this woman on the left, Jennifer Rice, was one of my mentees at New Urban Arts. And so it was wonderful to work with her again. And then this was the flyer for our first procession. And we started at the temple up on Hanover Street, and Watch Your Brigade, which Andrew was part of at that point, agreed to lead us off and lead the procession down to the boathouse at the end. And then we stopped by Charles Forts Elementary. We picked up those kids. The principal was there. The receptionist was there. It was great. And then we went by Adelaide High School, which is Alvarez now, and Big Nazo met us there as well as those students. So it was like this stone growing, getting larger, and ending up at the boathouse. So there we are at the temple with getting blessed by the monks. And then we are going down Buckland Street and through the neighborhood. I mean, people could just hear us coming, and they went out of there. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a parade in South Providence before. So this was really crazy. What is going on Saturday morning? And then they came out and they looked, and then they saw these big, huge puppets coming down the street. I mean, it was great. And people did come and join us. I mean, I always, encourage people to join us as we go. So that was 2007 and 2008, and I tried to kind of, I'll intersperse these in the slide show, kind of who our partners were, and then the individuals who were connected to those organizations, because it all boils down to relationships with people. So I think it's really important to honor those individuals and recognize them. And then on the right is the core planning and teaching folks. And I'm not sure that I'm supposed to advertise this, but Textron actually supplied the money for me to do this. So, and then, so the next year, 2008, 2009, was all about unveiling the signs. And then we did another project through the health department, thanks to Bob Vanderslice, which was all about what kids exploring what it means to be a healthy person, have a healthy home, and to have a healthy community. Alyssa Holland Short spearheaded that effort. So here in that year, we were, I took the designs the kids came up with, I put them into digital format, and then I worked with Derek Schusterbauer, who is a real graphic designer at the RISD Museum, to then get them ready for DOT to fabricate them. And here we are at DOT meeting with the people and looking at the proofs. And then that's one of the signs that's up. And it's in English and Spanish and Cambodian. And the text was originally created by the kids, and then Bob and Elizabeth Scott looked at the text and tweaked it and gave it the final approval. And then there we are with Puzzle Man, who is sort of a metaphor of a healthy community, and it is actually a puzzle. So the kids did a presentation for the health department in which they assembled Puzzle Man in front of the audience, and it's like the community needs all these pieces in order for a whole person to be healthy. And then 2009 to 10, our partnering organizations and individuals in the core planning group. This was the founding of Urban Pond Procession. After the last year, I was going to kind of fold it up, and I didn't think there was interest. It'd been too much work, and I did need a little bit of funding, and so I was going to just fold it up. And we had a meeting at one of the neighbors on the pond's house, and more people came. And it was like, okay, I guess this is really going to be something. And one of the key ingredients was I had given a talk at City Arts, and there was teaching artists there who were interested in the project, and they came to this planning meeting. And that sort of just changed everything. And so it became Urban Pond Procession. The reason it wasn't Mashpug Pond Procession is because the Narragansett Bay Estuary Program, Tom Ardito, the head of that, came and talked to me and said, hey, listen, we see what you're doing, and we'd really like you to include the Roger Williams Park ponds in your efforts. And so I said, okay. So we were now not just Mashpug, but Roger Williams Park ponds, because Mashpug pond waters empty into the Roger Williams Park ponds. So all the stuff that's in Mashpug is going into those ponds, and we all are connected. So that's why we are Urban Pond Procession. And at this point also, the Environmental Justice League got very much involved. Amelia Rose has been wonderful, and it was at that point we decided that she would really spearhead looking at the cleanup of the Gorham site, and what I would be working on is the procession and education and celebration and creating the artwork for the procession. And that's our wonderful logo that Janice Choi created, which is made up of the ponds in the watershed. So that little one at the top left, that's Tongue Pond going down into Spectacle Pond that reaches over to the right to Mashpug Pond, that then goes into the network of ponds that's Roger Williams Park ponds. And then, Janice, you can explain the final P.
I just need another P.
So the truth comes out, because people have asked me, and I said, oh, well, that's kind of like the Narragansett Bay. And this is a wonderful flyer that she made for the first Urban Pond Procession, which was our third procession. And we decided we would start at the boathouse, start at Mashpug Pond, and then move through the neighborhood to Liberty Elm Diner, and then down Elmwood to Roosevelt Lake, which is where the actual waters from Mashpug empty into the Roger Williams Park ponds. And then we moved on to the Temple of Music, where we ended. So one of the things that we did in terms of outreach was we did Save the Date Fish, which was to do like go to events that were happening in the spring and have kids decorate these fish and then put a label on. So they would remember the date. This is one of the artists that came on board, Lisa Melman, who's been fabulous. And this is her students looking at a map of the watershed and finding where they live in connection to that. Proud creator of a wonderful fish. And this year we were making flags. And these are the flags that every time we have a procession, there's tons of props for people to like wear or carry or whatever. So these are waiting for people to come and grab them up and carry them in the procession. Whoops. So this was done by Shupeng Lin based on the procession that year.
They are the victims of the urban environment, and in the case of Nashwauk, the industrial legacy of Orem. Bob McMahon was here earlier. He talked about how they're beginning work on Roger William Kirk ponds this summer. They've also put in a proposal to DEM to receive some grant funds to do work on Nashwauk pond. I can guarantee that will be funded, and you all have been involved in these processions for the last 2 years. And so your presence is really very key. I have to give a huge thank you to the people who are volunteering to collect water quality data. If it were not for these volunteers, we would not have current data on these ponds. And so I want to specifically thank Phil and Liz and Diane for their work in monitoring Nashwauk Pond.
Okay, so at this point, you know, I'm not doing any artwork, and I'm still an artist that really likes to make my own work. So after this, great success, oh my God, was wonderful. I had a residency at a iPark in Connecticut, and it was great to just go away and, you know, it's like, I didn't even know if I still was an artist anymore in that kind of sense. So it was kind of a risk to go away for 2 weeks and just do my work. But I went with the mission. I wanted to figure out how to float my work on water because I felt I was all about, you know, drawing attention to this pond. So how do I, as a painter, how do I make my work float on water? So it was an interesting task. And I had done this sketch earlier, about a year earlier, because I was interested in the idea of a circle floating on the water, a half circle, and then the reflection completing the circle. It's like the water and the air, a whole. So I challenged myself with that and managed to figure out that ballast was really important and symmetry was really important. And so these are, if you can see, this is the pond up at iPark. There's a few little pieces floating. And then this is one of my last piece that I did. And these are globes, like street light globes, and with rocks in them. And the sails are waxed paper and screen material. And the people at iPark liked it so much they asked me to be part of this exhibit, Thanatopolis. And it was like, oh my God, they put it on their banner. And it was like I had just gone there and I wasn't even sure if I really did work anymore, that kind of work. So that set me off on a whole new thread of really wanting to keep my work alive and to work on ways to get it on water. So this is 2010. I did a project with, the focus of Urban Pond Procession was going to be the Narragansett history. So I worked with the Tomahawk Museum, and we're about to put out a book of collages and writings as they imagine their ancestors would have lived on Nashwauk Pond. And this will be a book that teachers can use to help their students understand what it was really like for their ancestors by Native people, which there's very, very few of those kind of books around. And I interviewed Paula Dove Jennings, who's an elder, and so there's an article or writing by me based on that interview, and brought in Bill Simmons from Brown, who's an anthropologist, and he did a talk for us about his investigations of Native Indigenous people living at Mashpog Pond, so that's part of the book. So back to the Urban Pond Procession, this was one of our gatherings by the pond. That was our initial gathering for last year, and I think we'll make that a tradition. It was wonderful. And we were, so the theme was the Native history as well as creating percussion instruments, because we were fearful that we might not have Watch Your Brigade some year, and we really needed sound. So this is the artists of UPP brainstorming before they go into the classroom, and Will York is an environmental scientist, and he's showing us how to do an interactive model based on the Gorham site and what toxins do when they get into the groundwater. And then we had a Brown student who came and was really interested in finding out how to write, how community organizations create funding so that they can exist. And she got very interested in the project and created a blog about what we were doing. We also worked at Community Prep, again, bringing Loren Spears from Tomahawk Museum to the kids, and them doing that interactive model. And then Priscilla Carrion's one of the great artists we've been working with, and she's a textiles person that graduated from RISD. And so she's explaining to them about weaving, because we'll weave a fence that was then put up at Mashpog Pond to draw attention to the fact that stop, you shouldn't be going into this pond. And the kids were really proud of them. And so there they are in situ, and this box there is for people to open and to take tags out and write what they wish for the pond. And it's also information about what's going on with the pond and what they can do to mitigate. And I was over there one day, and there were people really using it, and they said, oh yeah, we read all that information. Yeah, we really want you to clean this up, because after we play softball, we'd love to go swimming in this pond, which if Bob can say we probably won't ever be able to, but the spirit is there to really work on cleaning it up. And this is one of the tags. And then we also worked at Sophia Academy with the Science and Social Studies program, again bringing Loren in. And Paul Sharp is another one of our artists. These are some of the materials they use. Phil Edmonds, a wonderful musician, working with the kids with their shell shirts and making a percussion instrument out of a bicycle wheel. And this is, we did a fundraiser, and we worked at Nathan Bishop too. Two other artists that joined us, Lisa Melmud and Chris Lee. Chris is a musician, and Lisa was the visual artist, so they made these wonderful instruments. This is a part of a canoe, so the two people would wear it. And then this was our flyer for that year, and here we are this past summer. And Extraordinary Rendition Band was great with kind of playing with the kids and then challenging them, so it was really getting professional musicians working with the kids right in the procession. This is behind Liberty Elm. And now we have a website. So this is our website. And then back to me working on my work. These are further development of the pieces to float on the pond. This is based on Gorham. The other ones were based on Narragansett history. And then this summer, the city actually gave me a key to the boating house so I can store materials there. A lot of urban pond procession materials are there, and my materials, so I use it as a studio this summer. And there's this piece floating on the pond. Whoops. And then this is just what we're hoping for this year, what we're looking forward to. The focus is going to be on the Gorham history, the industrial history of the pond, and I'm working at Brown and co-teaching with Annie Buck, oral history and community memory. And so I'm really so excited that a couple of my students are here, and they're doing great work on researching Mashpog Pond. It's like another huge gold mine to uncover a lot of this history with such wonderful, talented, and smart students. So that's very exciting, and we're going to set up a pop-up community museum in the Mashpog Commons for in December, where we're inviting people to bring in any kind of objects that connect with this area, and then they'll be interviewed, and the students will create a museum right on the other side of the pond from here. And we're working with Sophia Academy and the Steel Yard. The kids at Sophia will be making a floating sculpture that will be on the pond, floating on the pond, and it will be unveiled at next year's procession. And then Lisa is going to be working with Community Prep and Nathan Bishop on something for the procession, and Chris and Anna will be working with where they are presently employed at Resources for Human Development, and Big Nazo is hopefully going to be working with kids at Reservoir Elementary on creating some kind of costumes that are inspired by Gorham designs. So that should be pretty interesting. And then I'm hoping to go back to iPark and in the summer to further develop my work. So I'm sorry I went over.
Okay.
Thank you very much.